Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining the Superfluid webinar, Supercharge User Journeys with a Self-Service Portal today. Just a bit of housekeeping to begin with. Please do drop questions in as they may arise during the webinar, and we'll pick them up at the end. As usual, this webinar will be available on demand afterwards, so if you miss anything, then you can listen again later, and the link to that will be sent out in the email that follows after the recording. So without further ado, let me hand you over to Matthew Tan, who's going to take you through the webinar today. Over to you, Matt.
Thank you, Rory. Hi, everyone. It's Matthew Tan here. I'm the General Manager of Consulting Services here at Superfluid. Very quick introduction around Superfluid. We have deep capability. We're a Microsoft services provider and have deep capability across 3 distinct practices. Today, the customer experience practice is being featured, and it's where we deliver our client self-service portal services from. We have a digital workplace practice, which is centered around Office 365 services and all the associated workloads. And we have a data and insights practice, which is all about, reporting, analysing your data, data warehousing, integrating multiple systems together. The format of the webinar today is I'll take you through a bit of a background around why people implement self-service portals and what is a self-service portal, all the way through to giving you a real life example of a self-service portal that we've actually built for a client. I'll actually show you their self-service portal, and there'll be a couple of offers towards the end of this webinar as well. And as Rory mentioned just now, if you have any questions or throughout the webinar, just type it into the chat box and I'll address them at the end of the webinar. And if you have any issues, also type them into the chat box, and Rory will try and provide some assistance if you need it. So at the beginning, the what and the why of self-service portals. So just so we're all on the same page here, a self-service portal really is a website that enables your external parties or users, whether they're customers, they could be employees as well, suppliers or partners, anyone that really has an external relationship to your organisation. It provides or facilitates the ability to perform high-value transactions. It could be a simple contact detail update, all the way to paying invoices, or sending in, submitting requests, or even engaging with one another in a community setting. So that's what a self-service portal is for the definition of this webinar. Key question here is why. So why do organisations implement a self-service portal? Quite often, the main reason, which is a very important reason, is that customers expect it. The way users are, or the way users or customers are these days is we all live very busy lives. We all want to be able to do everything from the push of a button. Either whether it be on our computer in the sanctuary of our home or from our mobile phone. And as a lot of you might also know from first-hand experience, you don't get the best experience when you call up a call center. You tend to be on hold for a while. You might not get to speak to the person that you wanted, that can actually help you. So having an online option that you can get to in your spare time or in your own time without having to sit there waiting for minutes or hours is certainly a very appealing option. A lot of organisations choose to implement a self-service portal to help improve that customer experience that they're trying to deliver. It's not for every customer, and I'll talk about some of the key considerations in a second. One of the other keys is that you want to provide customers the option or the flexibility to be able to engage with your organisation easily and without fuss. So what are some of these key considerations for implementing a self-service portal? A lot of organisations I've seen tend to embark on implementing a self-service portal, and that's a really great step and a great initiative, but often they fall over when it comes to the go live. And a key thing that gets quite often overlooked is when your customers are trying to access your self-service portal for the first time, or even for the second or third time, or they're trying to, perform a transaction of some sort, and something doesn't work, how do they get help? You want to provide the ability for them to be able to call. Maybe you want to escalate and allow and open up a live chat option, or maybe it's just a simple email if it's not a critical function. But it is very important that, like your internal IT function, and you have users using internal applications, your external applications need a support function as well for when people get stuck and need some help. So that's a key consideration, a very important one. You don't want to implement and build this nice flashy whiz-bang self-service portal only for it to fall over and go live because a key function wasn't available and there was no way for your customers to tell you that it wasn't working properly. So that's after a self-service portal has been implemented. Prior to implementing a self-service portal, you might have a lot of manual processing. So a really popular reason why self-service portals are implemented are that they're used to automate a process which involves or requires external input. So a typical example might be a visa application. If you're going to, you want to plan a holiday and you go to the United States, you're going to fill out a form, apply for a visa. It requires you to provide a certain level amount of documentation, maybe go into the embassy to, prove your identity, etc. And in the past, this probably was done via a manual paper-based process, and those processes can be quite clunky and cumbersome, right? So, but also not just for the person filling it in, but for the organisation having to process it. So, you imagine receiving a paper form and then going over to your computer and then start typing it in. The number of errors that can get introduced in that process is certainly a risk that you'll need to consider. I've covered off the requiring external input. Certainly, paper forms and digitizing paper forms is a significant appeal for a self-service portal. Is your current customer experience positive? So, do customers often have multiple touch points with various parts of your organisation in order to achieve a single outcome? If that's the case, how long does it take for them to pay a bill? How long does it take for them to fill out a form? How many people does it involve internally in order for you to complete a process? Looking at those types of considerations, self-service portals can address that through, making online forms available, for example. So that's another consideration. The data sources. So where is the data that this, your customer needs to get access to? Or how many different systems does does the data required in order to support a single process live? So bringing them into a consolidated form or process within a self-service portal can certainly help streamline a lot of your business process in that regard too, especially when you have to do manual reconciliations between various systems. And lastly, but probably the one that's most important, is the audience. What type of customers would benefit from accessing your company's online services? So being very clear about your target market. A lot of organisations, including Superfluid, have different types of external stakeholders. We have clients, and we have partner organisations that we have very different relationships with. So, and then that will drive the requirement of whether you need one portal or two, or whether this one portal can cater for the different audiences. But a very important one. So you've implemented the self-service portal. What are some of the possible impacts? What are some of the benefits of deploying a self-service portal? So one of the key ones there is reduction in customer service costs. An amazing stat I read a couple of years ago was in the US, the Department of Environmental Protection, or the EPA. They implemented a self-service portal which had, self-help, knowledge base, search, and live chat. And the statistic at the time, within the first 6 months, was that they were able to reduce their customer service team, so the people that were picking up the phones and replying to the emails, by over 40%. I think it was even close to 50%. So that is a primary driver with regards to customer service costs. It's not about making people redundant. It's really more about optimizing and improving the experience, and having a reduction in costs is certainly a benefit. But really, you want to be able to free up your staff to better service your customers on requests that do require a lot more attention. So it's not necessarily just about removing headcount. Self-service portals also provide 24/7/365 days a year service. So instead of having a 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. business hours call center service, having a self-service portal allows you to deliver some of your services, not all, but some, outside of business hours as well. It does enhance your company brand. One that's a little bit hard to quantify, but in this day and age, a lot of customers, a lot of people expect to be able to self-serve themselves online. I don't have a stat, only because I found very, very different ones across many different data sources. So I think we all know, though, that if we look at ourselves personally, we tend to have a preference to use an online service like paying your bills, instead of going to the post office or paying by check. A lot of us now these days prefer to pay online, either via direct debit or on demand. It can also create cross-sell opportunities. So depending on the type of organization you have, you can look at the types of issues or requests that are coming through from specific customers or specific customer segments, and identify opportunities for addressing a new need that you may not already provide as a service, or having your system automatically tell or notify someone where there could be an opportunity to upsell more services or products. So having a self-service portal certainly can enable that too. So what are some of the common use cases? What do other organizations use self-service portals for? So I have talked about your typical online payment scenario. So last night I paid for my gas bill online with AGL, and at the end of it, it was all done pretty seamless. I just hit the PayPal button, signed in, and the payment was done. At the end of it, though, interestingly, and this is a new feature they must have rolled out, it actually gave me the option to set up automatic payments, but controlled by me via text message. So the way it works is it basically saves your payment information, and prior to the due date, or on the due date of your bill, it will send you a text message to say, do you authorize, your bill is due, do you authorize us to take the payment? And all you have to do is reply yes via SMS, and it will process the payment. So I thought that was an extremely good customer experience. So, but some of the other common use cases here, things like what I mentioned just now about the EPA, knowledge base and FAQ search. So having smart searching available, allowing your customer to find the answer that they need without having to call you first. So having a good knowledge base or a search capability is great. What it also does is it also increases the traffic to your website as well. As your knowledge base becomes an excellent source of information, you'll naturally notice that your website will increase in traffic as well. I've talked about e-commerce and online payments, online application forms. Again, filling out, gone are the days where people were happy to fill out, 30-page application forms manually. I know some of it still exists in this day and age, but a lot of people now expect to fill forms out online, sign it electronically, not have to do that clunky print off the form, sign it manually, rescan it, and email it off. That process now is shortcut through technologies like DocuSign, where you can basically just sign it electronically and it's done, and it holds up in a court of law. There's community forums, so allowing your customers to engage with each other to help solve business problems that they might have, or even get support, and having solving problems in a public forum, which then allows other customers who might be encountering the same problem to see the solution. So community forums can be very powerful there, or engaging partner organisations. So it's not just a customer relationship, but it could also be a B2B partner relationship too. So this webinar is all about trying to help organisations decide whether a self-service portal can help them. We are a Microsoft partner, and we do have very strong Dynamics 365 capabilities. And one of the clients that we've worked with, the Royal Australian and New Zealand College of Radiologists, is a long-term client of ours. We went live with their self-service portal last year, as well as a new Dynamics 365 system as well. I just want to spend a bit of time going through some of the problems there and actually show you the self-service portal that we built for them. For Ranska, I'll call them Ranska here, prior to them implementing their self-service portal, they have their stakeholders are doctors, radiologists that work across Australia and New Zealand, and they need to pay an annual membership fee to the organisation in order to practice within this region. So prior to the self-service portal, they had to renew via a manual process. So someone in Ranska would run a query. They would write some scripts. They would generate a new membership record and an invoice record in their legacy CRM system. Then they'll write another script to generate the email notifications to the members in order to pay the membership. There's a link to the invoice details, or is attached to an email. And then the member has a few options. They can click on a link and put in their payment details, and then it gets taken offline and given to the finance team and processed manually. Or they can set up a direct debit and send, transfer it through the banking system, or they can write a check. I think there was even one case of someone wanting to pay by cash, and they sent it in an envelope. But as part of this new digitisation program that we worked with Ranska on, we enabled online payments through PayPal via the self-service portal. So what happened was that renewals now, instead of being, writing manual scripts every year, they would be generated at the click of a button. So they would run a query in the CRM system and say, we're going to renew these members, so let's say the fellows, and they'll hit a submit button. It would grab all the active members of that type and then systematically create the membership records with all the updated details, as well as the invoice. So once the invoice record got created, it would send them an email notification to tell them an invoice had been created, and prompted them to log into the self-service portal. So on that note, I'll just switch over to the actual self-service portal. This is a non-production portal. It may complain if I push it too hard, because it doesn't have the production specs on it. You'll also notice it's hosted in Azure, so it's a cloud-based portal. But yeah, the member will get prompted to sign into the portal to pay their invoice. So when they sign in, so I'm already signed in, but when they sign in, they'll get presented with their account page, where they have the opportunity to update their contact information if it's changed. So again, hits two birds with one stone there. They'll also keep their contact details up to date, and you won't have to, someone in your organization won't have to manually update it when they find that it's different. They can review other things like their address details and how they prefer to be contacted, and the types of activities they're interested in. So this is more for the marketing purposes. So they can update the subscription preferences from this same page as well. And once they're finished with that, they can hit the update button and save those details. But they can also click on the My Invoices page, which is one we've set up for their organisation, and view their pending invoices, so the ones that are outstanding. They can change that to view the invoice history, so the ones that are paid, but by default they see the unpaid ones. And from here they can actually download the invoice. And for Ranska, that was a huge improvement over the previous process. Previously, the only way for a member could get an invoice, well, there were two ways. One was to actually phone the organisation or email. And then the frontline staff, the customer service staff, will then go to finance, request the invoice, PDF it, attach it to an email and send it out, sometimes even printing it out and mailing it to the radiologist. So this download button here saved probably an hour per invoice request, and I think 60% of radiologists, or I think 60% of members would have requested their invoices. So you can imagine how much time this single button here has saved Ranska. So most importantly, though, from here they can actually select, which ones they want to pay for. So they can pay for one, or they can pay for both things. I've got an exam fee and a membership fee. So they make their selection, they hit the pay button, and this is where the portal, the Dynamics portal functionality kicks in. It's currently adding those two items to a shopping cart and taking me through the e-commerce process. So it's showing me a purchase summary. This is obviously a customization made specifically for Ranska. It's prompting me to add a donation. So at this point here, I can actually add a donation to either of those, or the fund or the trust there. I can choose not to and just hit next. And when I hit next, it will do a final confirmation of what I'm going to pay before sending me over to PayPal. And as you can see, I've done this completely without the assistance or requirement for anyone in Ranska to intervene. So I can run the process all the way through to the end once the invoice has been created. So hitting next here will open up the PayPal page and prompt me to sign in and pay. So once this payment has taken place, I won't actually run that through because I don't want to initiate an actual payment. The payment status comes straight back into CRM or via the portal. And for finance, wanting to reconcile the data, all they have to do is export the invoice records from CRM and reconcile that against the bank statement. So phase 2 of this project is to integrate it into their finance system. This was a phase 1.5 that you're seeing here on screen at the moment. But prior to that, the finance team would have to create all invoices manually after they've been generated in the legacy CRM system, put them into their finance system, and then as they receive payments from their bank account, their checks, or they process it on a credit card, and they've had to manually reconcile all these, both in the CRM system as well as their finance system, to ensure the money's been received as well. So, yeah, so there's certainly a lot of manual handling. I think the statistic that they ran internally after doing some analysis was that every financial transaction was handled 6 times within the organisation. Under this new world, it's handled twice. One initially to set up the invoice, the member does their thing, and then after that, finance just have to reconcile what's in the CRM system to the finance system. So yeah, two points down from 6. So yeah, significant improvement there. Just switch back to the deck. So for those of you that have started your journey, you might know some of these. So started your self-service portal journey. Some of you that haven't have the benefit of looking at some of the common pitfalls that we've seen across various clients that we've worked with. So one of the key pitfalls is providing functionality that doesn't get used. So with Ransker in particular, we made a point to target a specific workflow, being the membership renewal process, because we knew that every member had to do it. And that's the recommendation there, is to pick a process that isn't optional if you have them, and build those out. The last thing you want to do is invest in the shiny new portal, you implement all these whiz-bang features and nobody uses it. So pick a process that you know will get used, and implement that. You also want to make sure the functionality is easy to use as well. So you want to make sure that sufficient testing is performed, not just by your internal team, but by some very friendly customers or partners that you might have. Wireframing the application, or the forms, if it's a form type, online application form type scenario, is also advisable, so you can actually visualize what that user experience is, and just making sure that you limit the amount, the number of blockers that might prevent someone from actually completing the process once they start it. Not providing enough support, I did cover off in a previous slide. When users get stuck, and inevitably when you're in a B2C environment and you have lots of, there's a lot of variables, a lot of different devices and computers and operating systems and browsers, some things can go wrong. And not providing enough support will obviously not provide a great experience for your customers. So that's really important. Underestimation of the change management required to alter your business processes. So there is change management required. Quite often the processes that you have that are manual or paper-based will need to be changed, which will mean there's a change management activity for your staff, but also for your customers too. Recognizing those two and the different needs and wants of those different stakeholder groups is really important, and putting in mechanisms and support in place in order to support them. So, and no incentive for customers to use the portal. So what I've seen, one portal, not one that we built, but another organisation built, they put together a pilot, and really it was all about updating their subscription preferences and contact details, and there really wasn't anything else offered in the self-service portal. What they didn't realise was a lot of people these days, when they update subscription preferences, don't expect to sign into a portal to do it. That was a main blocker, and as a result, for that particular customer, that functionality never got used. So it is important to give customers some incentive. Again, on the Ransker example, the membership renewal, if they don't renew, simply will not be able to practice within Australia or New Zealand. So yeah, some careful thought around providing that incentive. So with that in mind, if you're an organisation that's just starting out on your portal journey, how do you know if you're ready? Superfluid does do a portal readiness assessment. We'll come in and understand your IT landscape, know where your CRM is at, assess the different portal options that might be available to you. With Dynamics specifically, there are several, and with Salesforce it's the same, but we can certainly talk to you at length, certainly around your Dynamics options. Identify any business risks, right? So, what are the processes you're thinking of automating and digitizing? What are some of the risks there to look out for? Those sorts of things. So we'll go into that detail and identify any risks that you might not know about. And present back to you a report around what you need to consider, what your portal could do from a phase 1 perspective, and really how much investment is required in order for you to implement the portal, at least in the first phase. So that's the first, call to action there. If you already have a process, so you've thought about this, you've done a bit of homework already, you kind of know what you need to do, and it's reasonably well documented, then maybe our portal quick start offering is the option and your best next step. So, what we encourage you to do after this webinar has completed, you'll receive an email, and in it there'll be a link to a recording, but also there'll be a link to an assessment matrix. So this is a table which has several columns in it. And really what you can do as a bit of homework is to fill out the different business processes you think would benefit from a digitization or promoting it into an online process. It will have some questions around how many touch points are involved within your organization and how many approval steps might be involved, and how long it takes from end to end from a duration perspective, and how many man hours from internal staff it takes per process. We fill all that in. We can then use that information to assess, pick a process from that to pilot in a Dynamics 365 portal for you, and prove that the technology will deliver the benefits that you would anticipate. So that's what the Portal Quick Start is. And for the special people here that are listening in right now, we do have a special offer for those that have registered for this and attended this webinar. There will be a free workshop. So with that assessment matrix that will get released at the end of this webinar, we encourage you to fill it in to the best of your ability, get in touch with us. The contact details will be in the email, and book in a free workshop where we'll come out, we'll review the contents of your assessment matrix, answer any questions that you might have, and have a pretty in-depth conversation about your business and whether you'd be ready to implement a self-service portal, or how Superfluid might be able to help you on your self-service portal journey. So that's the offer there. At this point, I'd like to open up the floor to any questions. Give you a chance to type in there. I might just check if anyone asks any questions during the presentation. I do have one question here. It's around, so it's worded like this. So how do I know what technology to choose for my self-service portal? It's a very good question. Quite often it depends on the technology landscape that you have in place there. Our portal readiness engagement will be able to answer that question. We we do approach it quite agnostically, that portal readiness engagement. So if we determine that, it's a non-Dynamics 365 solution, then we'll just tell you that. We certainly don't want to force you down or recommend a solution that is, purely in our own interests. What we want is for you to get the best outcome as possible. From a Dynamics perspective, if you are using Dynamics, then there are quite a number of different options. We have, clients that use the Dynamics 365 Portals product that does come with an enterprise customer engagement plan. We do have customers that are on the ADX Studio on-prem deployment option as well, and we have a couple of clients on WordPress as well. So there are many different, and there are quite a number of different portal technologies out there, Sitecore and Episerver, another couple. It really comes down to looking at the processes that you want to automate and your specific business and what you're trying to achieve in order to determine, the technology of choice. So, so that's the answer. Hopefully, I answered that question there. Just wondering if there's any other questions. Someone's got a specific question around Dynamics 365 portals. So they've said, I've heard the Dynamics 365 portals is limited in its ability to be customized. Is that true? And is this the best portal option for someone that is currently using Dynamics 365? That is a very good question as well. So thank you for that. The Dynamics 365 portals was a product that Microsoft purchased from a company called ADX Studio. They took that technology and they made it a software as a service offering. It is a couple of years old now. There are still a few teething issues, but it is stable. We have customers that are in production on it, and it's doing what's expected of it. So it's a very good product in that regard. Now, in reference to the ability to be customized, it is limited in the sense that you can't, customize individual web pages to the extent where, being able to download it and modify the HTML and re-upload it. You can do quite a lot though. We've got web developers here that use AngularJS and, able to use those kind of frameworks to be able to generate pretty cool looking and highly functional web pages, obviously still integrated with the CRM. The difference between that and the previous offering, which was ADX Studios, is that some of the functionality like e-commerce, for example, and document integration, what is not available today, but is available in the older version, which is the non-SaaS offering. So what I'm saying to you here is that yes, it can be customized, and yes, we can provide that functionality, but for things like document management or e-commerce, like what you saw just then, it can be achieved using Dynamics 365 portals, but it does require customization. Do we have any other questions? No. Well, if you do, feel free to reply to the email that goes out at the conclusion of this webinar, and we'll be more than happy to get in touch and answer any questions that you have. I certainly will be available via that email address if there are any sort of questions that do come through, and I'd be very, very happy to talk through it at length with anyone especially for anyone that wants to take up the free workshop offer. So thank you for your time, and we'll see you at the next Superfluid webinar.